Namaste and a very good afternoon to all of you. On behalf of the President of CESS, Professor M.K. Sridhar, Secretary, Director, and the team of CESS, I heartily welcome our beloved speaker for the session, Shri Gajanan Londhe ji, the respected dignitaries and participants for today's national webinar on NEP 2020, National Curriculum Framework for Foundational Stage under our CESS Talk series. So let us begin the session by offering our humble pranams to the Almighty. Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarva Karyeshu Sarvada. Thank you. Firstly, let me give a short introduction to our CESS Talk series. CESS has always been engaging with the stakeholders of education, such as policymakers, regulators, universities, schools, colleges, academicians, researchers, etc., to realize its vision of social transformation through and with education. So in this endeavor, CESS Talk series is one such initiative to draw the attention of the stakeholders and the education fraternity on various trending topics and issues in the education sector through talks from the experts. The CESS Talk was launched in the month of January, and this is the fifth CESS Talk in the series. So today's topic for the CESS Talk is about a national curriculum framework for foundational stage. The Central Ministry of Education has released the National Curriculum Framework for Foundational Stage on October 20th, 2022. So NCF proposes the curriculum framework for foundational stage as envisioned in the NEP 2020 and is the first ever integrated curriculum framework for children from ages 3 to 8 in the country. It's been one of the most important facets for the implementation of NEP 2020 and will play a key role on the education and the overall growth of children. In this regard, we are conducting this webinar today to understand the importance of NCF and long-term implications on the first 8 years of a child life and also the path ahead for teachers. And today we have with us Shri Gajanan Londhe ji, Executive Director, Samvit Research Foundation, and also the member of the Technical Secretariat, NCF. So when it is about to talk to him, we have a lot to, but he has strictly told me to, limit it. So beginning his career in a corporate sector and rendering his service for almost 27 years, Shri Gajanan ji has come a long way. And today is a well-known education enthusiast working with a zeal to improving the quality of education in our country and has 15 years of association with school education. He is the founding member of Samvit Research Foundation and works with a team of educationists and scholars to create learning resources for school education and support its implementation in large number of schools. Prior to Samvit, Gajanan ji worked as head of academics for Rashottana schools. He is serving as member of Research Council at Indian Institute of Teacher Education and Children's University, Gujarat. He has also worked as a chairman of Karnataka's State Focus Group for Value Education, member of State Curriculum Framework Committee for Early Childhood Education, and member of National Focus Group for ECCE. He is member of National Committee for Designing Curriculum Framework for 4-year Integrated Teacher Education Program. He's also working as member of Technical Secretariat for National Steering Committee to design NCF. So it's really a great pleasure to have you as a speaker today, sir. So before we get into, I request all the participants to leave their queries in the Q&A box so that we can take it up at the end of the webinar. Sir, over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. All the distinguished members of CESS, dignitaries present in the webinar today, all the respected teachers, gurus, acharyas. Yeah, it's really an honor to talk to you today, and also pleasure to continue contribution for the National Curriculum Framework foundational stage as part of TSG, and also overall as part of implementation activities for the National Curriculum Framework. So today, I thought I'll do this session in two parts. So one is I'll share through presentation a few important aspects of this national curriculum framework for foundation stage, and then we'll have time for open discussion. I'm sure a lot of you, many of you will have questions, so we will reserve some time for discussion at the end. I'll share my slides. Just let me know if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, it's visible, sir.
Okay. Okay. And I also assume my audio is okay, so I can continue.
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So in this session, I thought I'll talk about how this NCF was created, an overview of the NCF, and then talk specifically about the framework, fundamental principles, and the structure, and then key aspects which are mentioned in this framework, like approach to language education, numeracy, and the details about choosing the content, arranging the content, and the time. Very important aspect of assessment, and the pedagogy specifically for the foundation stage, and then how to create a supportive system. So these are areas I'll touch upon today. So let's go through. Do you see the bar on the top, or the whole presentation is visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as you have, all of you know that 2 years back, we got a very aspiring national education policy for our country. And this national education policy lays emphasis on transforming education for 21st century. This is the first time in our history of our country that we are having a national curriculum framework following a national education policy. So this NCF, or this national curriculum framework, has a lot to do for implementing the key recommendations and transformative aspects of National Education Policy 2020. So this slide, I just tried to put a few aspects of how this whole process will go. So we have a national education policy which lays down the important recommendations, and then we have curriculum framework which will define the approach on how we can implement these recommendations. And then most of us, we are familiar with the syllabus and the textbook and other learning material. So that will follow the NCF. And after that, the main person in this whole transformative journey is the teacher. I think it is all of us on this call. So empowerment and capacity building of the teachers. And from that, the whole exercise of transforming the policy from the document to the empowerment capacity building of teachers, the transformation at school will happen. So these are very high level steps of how this transformation will happen. I'm assuming all of us have gone through the national education policy, which has given a few important paradigm shifts. And one of the most important paradigm shifts this policy recommends is change from this 10+2 system to 5+3+3+4 structure. Now this 4 stages structure has a lot of meaning in terms of the development of the child and also specific characteristics of the child at each stage. Today, we are going to discuss more in details about the first stage, that is the foundational stage. So far, education in our country, the formal education started with age 6 to age 16, and then the 11th and 12th, which then has age 17 and 18. The policy recommends the education, formal education starts from age 3. So the first 5 years of block, which is age 3 to 8, is the foundational stage. So we will deal for this stage in more details in the slides which we will go through now. The NCF part, which is National Curriculum Framework, so far used to be a single document. This time there will be 4 documents. The first one will be National Curriculum Framework for the early childhood care and education. So it is National Curriculum Framework for the foundational stage. So this document is already ready. It is available. It was released on 20th of October. The second one will be National Curriculum Framework for school education. So this will be ready sometime early next year. And then the National Curriculum Framework for teacher education. So this will be ready mid of next year, along with the National Curriculum Framework for adult education. So this is also first time that we have a National Curriculum Framework for adult education. So this is the overall like 4 national curriculum frameworks we will have. Now today's talk is on the NCF for foundation stage. As all of us know from the NEP 2020, that foundation stage is very important. And the most important thing in foundation stage is about the integrated 5 years learning. And this is the first time we have integrated curriculum framework for age 3 to 8. Before this, we had a curriculum framework for the preschool, or we say the pre-primary, which is 3 to 6, and also then class 1 onwards, which was part of the NCF for school education. As NEP talks about foundation years, which lay the foundation for learning and also foundation for life, this curriculum framework also takes this 5 years as foundational education, and not just the education, where we start with the alphabets and the foundation literacy and numeracy. Specific to the NCF for foundation stage, there are 2 the most important things. One is that this NCF is based on cutting edge research in education, in neuroscience, and all the experiments, successful experiments done in India and world over. The other part is it is rooted in India's deep traditions and knowledge, because we have tradition for thousands of years and also many practices, systems of education and systems of knowledge. So the curriculum framework marries these 2 aspects. Another very important aspect of this NCF is this is designed, developed for the teachers and the practitioners. So you will see the size of this NCF is much larger than most of the NCFs we had earlier. So earlier we used to have 50, 60, 80 page NCFs, and they were more philosophical, and they were for the academicians and for the boards. But this NCF is 350 pages plus, and it has lot many details, and the expectation is every teacher will read this NCF. How this NCF has come into existence. Many times we have committees of experts. These committees will sit together, and from their experience, they will write the NCF. This NCF, like the National Education Policy, was designed or developed in a bottom-up way, in a very democratic way, by taking inputs from lakhs of people across the country. So there were extensive consultations from various groups of institutions, from experts. And then there was this position papers exercise, which was done in all the states and union territories. So there were 25 themes. So more than 4,000 experts worked in all the states, and they have created 25 position papers for the themes, 25 themes. And also there were national focus groups which created 25 position papers. And there were 1.3 lakh teachers and institutions, educationists, who have provided inputs for the mobile survey, and more than 10 lakh, I think now it's 12, 13 lakh citizens who have given inputs for this NCF. So we can see that the NCF is contribution of many people across the country. Other very important aspects of this NCF, as I said earlier, that this NCF is coming after NEP. So this NCF has primary responsibility of enabling the implementation of key recommendations of NEP 2020. And this is developed for the teachers and practitioners. So it has a lot of details for the teachers, practitioners. At the same time, this NCF will also guide designing curriculums at various states and union territories. So this will also form a basis for creating curriculum frameworks across the country for providing quality education for all the children in the age group of 3 to 8. Now this NCF, when the work started, there were fundamental principles on which this NCF was designed. So you can read on this slide all these principles. I can group this into the majorly 3 parts. The first part is child is in the center, or the focus of this NCF is child. What it means, every child is unique. The child grows and learns at its own pace. So that's one very important aspect. And at this age, child learns through play. Child wants to enjoy. So this is another fundamental aspect or fundamental principle, that children learn through observation, through play, and also through imitation and collaboration. And also this is the age where children learn through concrete experiences from their senses. So these are some of things. By keeping child at the focus, these are the guiding principles. Then there's another very important aspect as a guiding principle for this NCF is care is central to learning. The child should be valued, should be respected, and there has to be a loving bond between the teacher and the child. So that care aspect is very important for effective learning of the child. And child also should get opportunities to explore, experiment. So positive learning environment should be there around child. So this is the second aspect of the care part. And the third thing is the families and school, they partner in child's learning. The children are there in school for some time, but they are at home for large duration of time. So the families and school partner. So these are the fundamental principles for designing this NCF. Now, all of us know that for age specifically 3 to 6, most of the education happens in the preschool or in the Anganwadis, which are not part of the formal education. The ECC as such, the early childhood care and education, happens from age 0 to age 8. So age 0 to 3 largely happens at home. And then in the institutional setup, children come at the age 3. So this age 3 to 8 is further divided into 2 groups. So age 3 to 6, which is primarily in Anganwadis, Balvatikas or preschools, and then the class 1 and 2. So that's the structure of ECCE. And the foundation stage, this NCF focuses mainly on the age 3 to 8, which is in the institutional setup. Now we come to the structure of NCF. This NCF clearly has a flow down from the aims of education, which are defined in NEP. In this NCF, we see the 13 curricular goals, and the focus is on developing competencies, so which are mapped to these specific curricular goals. And there is a large set of learning outcomes. So these are the learning standards. So the learning outcomes for age 3 to 8 are given in a lot of details. So they are like enabling guidelines for the teachers and not prescriptive learning outcomes that this must happen in this particular time. The teachers are going to definitely enjoy having these details, and then they will also have flexibility to adapt these learning outcomes to their specific context, and they can customize as needed. The other fundamental aspect of this NCF is holistic development of the child. Many times, as parents and also we see in the schooling system, pre-primary education or starting of education is about learning alphabets and the foundational literacy and numeracy. The NCF for foundation stage focuses on holistic development in these 6 domains: the physical development, the socio-emotional ethical development, cognitive development, language and literacy development, aesthetic and cultural development, and then the positive learning habits. So this is mainly the aspect of how to learn to learn. Some of these are familiar to us. Maybe most of it we have heard. Some of these aspects we do very well in the current system. This NCF focuses on each of these domains, and there are specific competencies, the curricular goals, and then the competencies designed for complete development of each domain. So when you go through the NCF, you can specifically go to like physical development, and the focus is on balance development of the body, of the motor development, and then the sensory development. So you will see each of these domains are further detailed in curricular goals and competencies. Other very important aspect of the preschooling is language development. So we have 2 aspects: this language education and literacy. Our education in the current setup, you see, the language education starts with the letters and writing. In the NCF for foundation stage, the recommendation is on these are the steps, 4 steps we see on how language education should happen. Before coming to the institutional setup at age 3, the child or most of the children would have developed a vocabulary and language aspects, conversational aspects, and also the questioning aspect of inquiring and learning through a language in the home language or mother tongue. So when the child comes to school, so they have already developed these aspects. So now NCF says that we should just take what a child has already developed in the first 3 years and then use that as medium of instruction, which is the child's home language. So if we have a new language for learning at age 3, so this has an impact on the overall development of the child. The child has to then focus on learning new language first. So the NCF recommends education at foundation stage should happen through the home language. Other important aspect, what we see on this slide, is the language learning, which is the oral aspect of the language learning. So children should be exposed to as many languages as possible in an oral way. Children at this age can catch many languages. And if we see that if they're exposed to and there is an environment for children to learn multiple languages, they learn even 3, 4, 5, 6 languages at the same time, and they're able to use it in their day-to-day life. So this is the second aspect was this NCF talks about. The children should be exposed to multiple languages. And then the third aspect is about the literacy part, the reading and writing. Right, the language, which is oral aspect of language, comes very naturally for the children. The literacy part or the reading writing does not come naturally. So it has to be systematically developed. So this reading, writing sequence or the system has to be developed for the specific language. So there are methods which are given in NCF. So you'll also find it very useful. So what are the approaches for the reading and developing the reading writing skills? The NCF suggests that the reading writing for the first language should happen in the home language of the child. And there are various scenarios with our country so diverse, so we cannot have one policy. So there are different scenarios suggested in the NCF. The general guidance is reading writing should start in the most familiar language of the child. And then once the child learns reading writing in one language and masters it, then taking up other languages becomes easier. So at the end of foundation stage, the child should be conversant with home language and also should be exposed to multiple languages and should become an independent reader and writer. So this is the focus of language education and literacy. Another very important aspect as part of the foundational literacy and numeracy is the so-called, we call numeracy or pre-numeracy, numeracy at the foundation stage. So here NCF foundation stage focuses on a few aspects. This age is the age of concrete experiences. So children learn the concepts through concrete experiences. So EL, ES. So this method, start with the experience. As if we give more and more experiences to the child through the senses, then child can understand the concepts very easily, and later in the life, the abstract ideas can be understood in a much better way as the child goes from foundation stage to preparatory and the middle stages. So this is one very important aspect for learning numeracy. So we should not go with 1, 2, 3, 4 and the word mapping and the mathematical language directly, but focus on the experience aspect. So concrete experiences to concepts. Second thing is about connecting the world around child, the real life and the prior knowledge with the mathematics learning. And then use mathematics as a problem solving and also use mathematical talk, communication, reasoning in the conversation. So these are important suggestions for the approach to numeracy in the NCF FS. So what we've seen so far is the fundamental principles, the structure, and then we have seen the approach to language and numeracy. There's another very important aspect for foundation stage and overall learning is the learning material. So normally we call teaching learning material. So if we just focus on learning material first, so keeping the child at the center and learning as the focus, sometimes we get a little worked up about the learning material, how to create, or boards have to create learning material, or we focus too much on the books. So there is centrality of book in our system. But if you look at the foundation stage, things have to be a little easy, because at this stage, a child really wants to enjoy. Child wants to enjoy by playing and doing things what they like. So this is one part. Second thing we should really consider is that at foundation stage, child is just absorbing or experiencing things through all the senses. So the material what we use has to be sensorially engaging. So it can be for single sense or for multiple senses. So there should be a lot of the seeing part, the touch part, the feel part. So those things should be at focus. Apart from this, we should use things which the child is seeing around. So it should be from the world of the child. So it should be from the context of the child. And emphasis should be on the local material, what teachers are making, rather than something which is standard and global. Apart from this, the whole environment should be print rich. We should have a lot of posters and cards and pictures and a lot of things around the child. So these are few guiding principles for creating learning material. So what it also means, there may not be a lot of material created by the board or at a state level or district level. The schools and the teachers themselves have to engage in creating more effective and relevant material for the child. So one is about creating a material, and then how to organize this material. So there are various concepts of learning corners and the way we organize the room, and also how we can use various things, including the garden, the play area, and the physical environment of the school and the teacher herself. So the way content can be organized depends on the context and the environment or the infrastructure what Anganwadi or school has. So the content can be organized in a theme-based way, using a theme-based approach, or using a story-based approach, or a project-based approach, or a combination of these approaches. So we need not be very fixed on like we should only use theme-based approach for foundation stage. So teacher should use these different approaches based on the context, which is also for the children and the infrastructure and the environment of the school. So there's another aspect of organizing the time. So we organize the content in a story-based or theme-based or project-based. That also has bearing on how do we organize the day. So as we discussed earlier, this NCF is not a philosophical document. So it has a lot of details on how to organize the content, to how to organize the time. So there is an illustration or there are some guidelines on the daily routine, the weekly routine, and also the annual school calendar for the school. So these are only illustrative. So we should not use these as a prescription, because this can change based on the approach you use and also based on the context of the teacher. So this is about the content, like what should be the principles for learning material, to choose it and then to organize it and how to use it from the time perspective. So this is other learning aspect. The important aspect in the whole process is assessment. So we say that assessment drives learning. But if we have certain type of exam, then the whole system gears up to make children successful for the assessment or evaluation or examination. Especially for the foundation stage, we should be clear now what should be the focus of assessment. So in the NCF and also in NEP, there is focus of assessment for learning, as learning and off learning. So in the preparatory state, or even more down in the foundation stage, the focus or purpose of assessment should be to understand how the child is learning, what are the interests of the children, what are the gaps in learning, and that should give insight to the teacher to improve, modify the learning process. So assessment should be linked to the action and to improve the learning process, and not as an evaluation tool or not for the report card. As we discussed earlier, this age is important from the foundation of life, but at the same time, the child wants to enjoy. So child will do things what the child enjoys. So if we put assessment which disturbs that enjoyment, the whole learning process gets disturbed. So we have to make sure that this assessment is non-intrusive and it is helping child to enjoy the activities and the play through which the child is learning. So there are a couple of methods suggested, which is systematic observation, and then analyzing the artifacts what the child is preparing over the time. So through these systematic observations and various types of artifacts, teacher can create, can analyze all these and interpret based on these evidences, and then have the assessment of what is happening with the child and accordingly improve the learning process. Then the learning material, the assessment aspect, and then the pedagogy. Many times we try to work on pedagogy as a system to be followed, but in foundation stage, a lot of things should happen, or the teacher should just make it happen, rather than trying to do something in a systematic way. So this whole age has to be very child focused and driven by the child. In pedagogy, the first thing should be on building a very positive, very loving, compassionate relationship with the child, and that drives the learning. Planning for teaching should be flexible, and once the child is bounded and child feels safe and secure, then the learning through play is very easy. Specific strategies have to be applied for things which are not naturally learned by the child, like the literacy, reading, writing part, the numeracy part. So those things have to be done in a systematic way. And then overall, we should give opportunity for the child to explore, to experiment, and then to observe and imitate and have the experience of things in the environment. So creating positive classroom culture is also very important aspect of the pedagogy. Now we have seen important aspects of foundational or very fundamental principles, the structure, then about the language, numeracy, and then about the whole set of learning material, organizing it, organizing time, then assessment, and also about pedagogy. So these are part of the normal process flow in the learning process at foundation stage. But there are some other very, very important aspects we should take care in the foundational stage. The first thing is about the child. Like child, wants to play. At the same time, child also wants to feel safe and secure. So it is very important to create an environment, the physical and the emotional environment in the school where child is not bullied or harassed or intimidated. And there is, teachers must intervene whenever there is inappropriate behavior. So there should be overall zero tolerance for any type of disturbance or abuse or sexual abuse of the child. Learning is anchored when the child is feeling safe and secure. So if this very basic thing doesn't happen, nothing happens further. So this is a very important critical area which should be taken care, and in the foundational stage NCF there is a specific emphasis on this aspect. So apart from the feeling safe and secure, there's another very important aspect which needs to be taken care in the foundation stage, and that is early detection or identification of any developmental delays and disabilities. If we identify in this age, or even say 0 to 3 also should lay emphasis on it. So this identification of disability or delay can go to correction very fast. So the interventions can start very fast, and that will help the child to correct all those delays and disabilities before the child goes into a serious schooling. So it's very important responsibility of foundation stage to have early identification and then refer wherever there are concerns to the parent and also to the qualified person. Now this is about the foundation stage, which is age 3 to 8. Now after age 8, children will go to class 3, which is a preparatory stage. So in NCF, there is emphasis, there is thinking about the alignment and gradual shift from foundation stage to the preparatory stage. And this whole school NCF curriculum framework, which starts from preparatory, then goes to middle, and then to the secondary. All these stages are aligned for gradual upward progression of the development of the child, and not the downward progression where we expect by age 8 child should learn this, so what the child should learn at age 3. So it is an upward progression. So in this upward progression, the connections to preparatory are in terms of a gradual shift from the holistic development of all the domains to curricular areas. Like slowly child will get into the subject areas in the preparatory and then specific subjects in the middle stage. Similarly, the pedagogical aspect, how child learns up to age 8 through direct experiences, then it goes to formal learning environment. And similarly, the concrete sensorial experiences to the ideas and concepts, and then the abstract aspect, and also assessment, which was very informal and supporting the play. It goes to the formal tasks and additions and structured observations and all that. So these are connections which will happen from foundation stage to the preparatory stage. So this is moving from that one stage to other stage. We go into the other supportive ecosystem. What is required for foundation stage 2 for the development of child in the foundational stage. Many times we focus this whole learning aspect and the learning process and the whole transaction in the school with teacher and the student. For effective and holistic development in the ecosystem, there are many aspects which can help effective learning and holistic development. The first thing is empowering teachers who are around. The teachers should understand the foundational stage, the 5 years continuity, should understand what is the most important aspect of creating this foundation for learning, and also for the teacher, how teachers should transact in the school. They should have a lot of empowerment and autonomy. So this is one aspect of the environment. If we have very prescriptive environment, then a lot of things happen mechanically. Then the other aspect, is of the infrastructure and the student-teacher ratio. So how this whole school environment works. Then the things which are behind the scene, there's administrators and education officers. So all from teacher to principal to the education department at block level, cluster level, and at the state level. So there should be enough support and aligned support throughout this system. Another aspect, we also spoke about the engagement of parents. So there is a lot of emphasis on partnering with the parents and community, how we can engage them effectively with the schools for holistic development. And the last one is specifically for technology. So we know that if we use technology in the right way, it can help us. It can help us in many ways. So especially in foundational stage, we should use technology for textbooks, for guiding, creating a lot of guiding material for teachers, and for teacher capacity building, for sharing things across various states. A lot of things can happen using technology for teacher development. So this is all what I had to present as sharing important aspect of NCF. So we can go for question.
Can we take up the question, sir? That was a wonderful overview of what NCF is all about. I think it has given a lot of insights to the participants about it. So there are a couple of questions. So it is Dr. Vittal. He's asking, can you suggest some strategies for improving the quality in school education starting from the early stage? Sir, you're not audible, sir.
Okay, yeah, this is a very broad question. So the whole NCF actually focuses on quality and equitable education throughout our country. So all the recommendations or all the guidelines, right from the principle to the fundamental principles to the approach of FLNL's foundational literacy and numeracy and the holistic development is about providing quality education at foundational stage. So if you have specific aspect about quality education, maybe you can share that so we can have a specific answer. But then if you look at the whole NCF for foundation stage, the focus is about quality education for all children, quality and universal education.
So it's Sudhara. Sir, can we go to the next question?
Yes, please.
How to convince it is Sudharani Kulkarni. She's asking how to convince the parents about the same, as their expectations are high in syllabus part. Comparison is done with other schools.
So what I assume, and also I feel very happy about, is now this is coming in the national curriculum framework, which is based on the latest research in neuroscience and also in education and successful experiments all over the world. So when we take such findings into national curriculum framework, which national education policy is also talking about, so it will go into the state curriculum framework. So it will be same for all. So it will not be like one school is doing something else and other school is doing different. So this is point number one. So there will not be like, if you say start with language learning in a natural way, then you cannot start with ABCD. So your school is not good. So those things will not happen. I'm sure our parents are also going to read the NCF.
So it's a question from Mr. Raghunath. To what extent early childhood education addresses developing national spirit, respect to Indian customs, traditions, and age-old practices?
Yeah, this is a good question. See, from our National Education Policy 2020 to the National Curriculum Framework now, which is an important step in enabling the implementation, the focus is about rootedness. And as we all know that we have a great tradition of knowledge and also of education. So when we talk about the local aspect and the world around the child, so these are things which are traditionally rooted. So we are not taking something which is not rooted. So I mean, once we have things very local to the child's environment, then we will have the rootedness.
So the next question is, what is the basic qualification for teacher educator at this stage?
So this is a very important question. Because, implementation of NCF and the key recommendations in NEP 2020 will happen through teachers. So today we have a very diverse foundational stage education. So there's from WCD we have Anganwadis, we have private preschools, and we have standalone preschools. So, and then we also have co-located preschools. So there is a diverse set of schools, a diverse set of teachers in each of these institutions. So we are working on, as in every state, there will be implementation strategy and a plan to, and a roadmap to build the capacity of our existing teachers to bring this change, what is brought out through NEP and NCF. And also there is a recommendation in NEP about integrated teacher education program, that is ITEP. So it's a 4-year integrated teacher education program that is based on these 4 stages. So we will also see in future this teachers who are qualified through this 4-year ITEP program for foundational stage. So we need to have multiple strategies to develop our teaching faculty to bring the change.
Sir, there are a couple of questions from Professor Nalini Dwarkanath. There are series of questions. I think take one by one. What would be the teacher-child ratio in the classroom?
Yeah, so I think these are more specific questions which will be decided by the state. Yeah, there are definite guidelines. I think there are experiences and recommendations also that maybe around 1 to 15 to 20 students in a class. But NCF, is not prescriptive about the student-teacher ratio, so it has to be dealt at a state level.
So how would the parents get educated, rather prepared for the NEP NCF school education?
Yeah, it's a good question. Many times I feel even though our teachers want to bring in some change, there is a lot of push by parents, and for right reasons. So in this case, the question is, how do parents prepare? So I think for parents, it is very important to understand the characteristics of child in the early childhood, that is up to 8 years. 85% of brain development happens at this stage. So there is a lot of research, there are many papers, and also NCF talks about what is best for children at this age. So if parents read the National Education Policy and also they read the NCF for foundation stage, I'm sure it will be a good preparation for the parents to understand their child and what is best for their child. And they will not, make demands from arising out of their ignorance, but for the love and care of the child, which happens today that ABCD or writing is the first thing, or writing becomes the measure of a child's education. So they will, once they understand the right things, I'm sure they'll be well prepared for the betterment of best education of the child.
So the next question is, how is the teacher education structure plan as per NCF?
Yeah, we just discussed that. So it's it has to be a roadmap and a multifaceted approach. So we have to build the capacity of existing teachers. We have to bring the new teachers. So there has to be new course for bringing based on the NCF, and then also ITEP. So there will be many strategies which will be worked out.
So her next question is there any time frame to achieve all these things?
Yeah, so at least what we have seen is at Anganwadi level, when we bring out, or when we want to bring out the change and train the teachers, it happens quite fast. So this is experience. And so what we all should hope is our training programs are very effective. And in few years, we start seeing the change on the ground in a substantial way. And then overall, when this can happen, I'm sure we should, each state will have a different implementation plan. And depending on the current state where they are, it may take a few years to maybe 7, 8, 10 years for all the schools to have this NCF.
So there is a question from Girish Nair. If mother tongue is implemented in the initial stages, will it be possible for students from other states to study? How this issue will be tackled?
Yeah, it's a very important question and important aspect, because we have huge diversity in our country, which is also an advantage for being multilingual person. So our children learn many languages easily if they have environment, like if they have in their apartment complex the children from, or in a village, there are children from different communities speaking different languages. Children pick up those languages very fast. So this is one aspect of naturally picking up many languages at that age. Now the question is, if the child learns in home language in the foundation stage, and then there are children from different home languages in the class, so it's a multilingual classroom. How do we handle that? So this is a challenge, and there are some strategies suggested in NCF. We will have different types of scenarios. So scenario where all children speak the same language, scenario where maybe in the border district, where children speak say, two languages of two states, or scenarios where the home language is different from the state language, scenarios like in urban setup, in cosmopolitan cities where children from 4, 5 states or 8 states might be in the classroom. So at every stage, we need a different and specific strategy. We cannot have one solution for all. But the overall principle is child should learn in the most familiar language. So if most familiar language is not possible, then the next most familiar language is what child should learn, and not learn in a foreign language where child cannot read. That's the guiding principle for foundational stage.
Sir, there is a question from Mr. Raghunath. Teachers feel that they are already overburdened. How do we address this issue when the teachers are to prepare the training material, impart the syllabus, handhold the child to take care of the learning disabilities, if any? So how this can be done? Yeah,
I think this is a very important aspect for teacher. I would only say don't get hassled up. This stage specifically should be, we call it sahaj, very spontaneous, very sahaj. Sahaj is like it should just happen. We need not work up about it. So what it also means is you don't have to be thinking about I need these 20 things to start a class, or I need to do a very detailed planning to start a class. So in the class, along with the children are also at this age, so children will do things which they enjoy, and they will do those things again and again. And by doing these things again and again, what they enjoy, learning happens or development happens. So this is this age. So teachers also should, just let these things happen. So teachers have to support this happening. And children, I'm sure, at least my experience is many teachers enjoy this thing. Sometimes maybe the system might be stressful than the children and the actual process of learning.
Sir, can we take up few more questions? Is that okay?
I'm fine. The time is over, but it's okay.
There is a question from Purnima Hegde. To what extent technology usage in ECCE can be effective in a country like India?
I think for us, we need a lot of technology. Technology should help solve our problems. And we have seen during COVID time, people have used technology quite effectively. So for teachers, for connecting, disseminating information, for sharing, we should use technology. Because technology gives wider and easy access. So we must take benefit, use these available resources in an effective way. For children, of course, we know the negative impacts of screen time, both in terms of the mental development and also the impact on the sight. So we should restrict the usage of technology or screen time. When we say technology, many times we just focused only on digital technology, but there are many. Technology is so vast, right? Digital is just one aspect of technology. So in general, we must use technology. For children, the digital usage should be restricted.
So there is a question from Professor Mahadevaya. How do you balance the curriculum in a country like India, having diverse cultures and languages, that too in this digital era?
Yeah, this is the most challenging part of our country, and also maybe the most beautiful part also. So we have such a variety. If we try to give a point solution, that is single solution, it is not possible. So we need to give guidelines and then every state will localize, customize the needs based on the situation in the state. And also further, the teacher should be empowered to use, for example, different approaches, like use a story-based approach or a theme-based approach, or even use the material which is locally available. So we should not prescribe things at national level or even at state.
There is a question from Chandrasekhar. This is a kind of transition. So what kind of impact it will have? What kind of effects or disadvantages it might have?
It will have positive impact for sure. At least I don't think it will have any negative impact, because again, I come back to it is based on the research, the latest research, and also based on the experience. And also it is rooted to our culture, so which is also for ages, right? So considering all these things, we will move forward with positive impact. Transition is always difficult. I would say it's more difficult because the first step of any transition is we decline it. So we start with refusal to change. So if we start with accepting the change, I'm sure it will go very smooth.
Sir, this will be the last question that I'm going to take up, because there are a lot of repetitive kind of questions which you had already answered. So it is a question from Dr. Vital Poddar. Should moral education be made compulsory in school education?
Yes. So when more than moral education, so you have seen in the holistic development, we have 6 domains. So one of the domain is the socio-emotional ethical development. So the ethical aspect should be there, and we should definitely start with the foundation stage, where in the NCF you will see there are many aspects of developing good habits. So this age is habit formation and the self-discipline aspect. So you will see those aspects part of foundational stage, and it will continue in the school education NCF as well.
Thank you very much, sir. Now I request Dr. Sindhuja, Senior Assistant Professor at CESS, to give away a vote of thanks. Sindhuja ma'am, over to you.
Namaste, sir. Good evening. Good evening to everyone. Indeed, it's a wonderful session for us. So the questions still 35 plus rolling down. So that itself speaks the intensity and the depth of the discussion, sir. The great to learn about the formation of national curriculum framework and the future prospects, and followed by at each stages other divisions of upcoming curriculum frameworks, and it's a great understanding learning from for us, sir. Thank you so much on behalf of Center for Education Social Studies, and on behalf of Professor M.K. Sri, the President of CESS. So it's a great learning moment and experience for us, sir. Thank you so much for delivering this talk, and with patience answering to all the questions. Almost 30 plus questions you have answered, and this is one such moment where a lot of interactions, questions have been given more time towards clearing out the doubts. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you once again, sir, for making it happen. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.